Hey everyone, Shawn Clement here for Wisdom in Golf at the Royal Quebec Golf Club. And of course, Golf WRX, and we are continuing down our rabbit hole for the backhander. And we're getting into the fairway woods and the driver. Now, the cool part of this, and you guys remember we talked about a hammer, and we were going to use a hammer to plaster that nail through the door frame. And you remember how behind the hit we were with this hammer. So imagine if this hammer was my door frame, and this is what we're going to start with as far as the ball position. So I get my ball, I'm going to put that ball right up against this door frame. Now, for you to find the proper ball position, fade versus draw with the fairway wood, I got a little 5-wood here. So I'm going to play the ball way too far forward. And my goal is to try and squeeze that ball straight into that door frame. So notice right now, I got to lunge like crazy to go after that ball to try and get it to go straight in. That's when I know it's way too far forward. If I put way too far back, notice I have to reach back now to squeeze it into the door frame. That's no good either. So I want to feel that I'm going to go straight into the door frame for the fade. Okay, so straight in is for the fade because I'm collecting it square up against the door frame, and then I'm releasing it beyond the door frame just a little bit to, in my case, a little bit to the right of my intermediate point. So I'm going to use this right here as my intermediate point. I'm going to start it just a little left of the telephone pole on the left side of the range here. I'm going to start a little right of the telephone pole, and I'm going to fade it back to the telephone pole. So right now it feels like I can go, if I line up my door frame, a little right edge of that intermediate point, that I'll be able to squeeze straight through that door frame in that direction. Make sure I'm in zone there. Good. So now it feels like the club, the center of the club's in the center of my feet and the ball's forward of that. So now I want to feel like I can really squeeze through the door frame, and I feel like the heft of that lead side is behind the hit. So here we go. Good. Nice direction. It started a little bit more to the right than what I wanted. I got a nice 240 out of that hit. So notice my spin axis is pretty much straight. So either my club face wasn't open enough, or I aimed a little bit too far right, or a little bit of both. So let's have a look at that again. Either way, it was a really good miss. So, right edge. Ball's a little forward to center. Feels like if I squeeze through the door frame, the ball's going to fade a little bit to the right, to the left. So I stay with the door frame, stay with the door frame. Oh yeah, that's the one. Coming right back for the post. So again, about 240, 237. There's that lovely little spin axis to the left. So I had a nice little fade back to the left. And so that is working out very nicely. So now if I wanted to draw the ball, let's go back to our door frame here. I've got my door frame. And now what I want to do is I want to feel like I'm going to squeeze the ball a little bit to the left side of the door frame. So if I play it too far back, it feels like it's going to go way too far left. Now it feels like the center of my club is slightly back of center and the ball's just forward of that. So right now my ball's just a hair forward of center. Now it feels like when I stay behind it, it wants to squirt a little bit to the left. There's my ideal draw position. So I'm going to line up straight over my intermediate point, going straight for the post. Then I'm going to play the ball back enough where it feels like it's going to start just a little bit to the left of that intermediate point. My club face is a little more closed. Now all I got to do is use the heft of the hammer to squeeze to the left of that intermediate point with ease. Awesome. A little bit more across. Nice ball, 250. There's my distance with that. And you can see my arc is my draw axis right there. Nice and just a little bit toward the toe, but it was a very nicely swung golf shot. There's the flavor of that draw. So line up square with the direction I want to end. Play the ball a smidgen more back than with the fade, where it feels like it's going to squeeze just a little bit to the left of that intermediate point. Now I got to stay with the task. Squeeze through the door frame to the left of the intermediate point with ease. Let's see how we did. Awesome. Basically a carbon copy of the first one there. A little off center, 240. And there's that same draw axis right there. All right. So now, if we do that with the driver, now we're going to be catching the ball a little bit more on the upswing with the driver. So now, I'm doing the same scenario insofar as the door frame is concerned, except that it's going to be a little bit more on the way up. So now it feels like I'm going on the way up and slightly left for the draw, and on the way up and slightly right for the fade. So again, we're using the door frame. Let's start with that fade again. So I'm going to go slightly to the right of that intermediate point. There we go. I'm going to put that just a hair lower. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to aim with the intermediate point and fade a little bit more to the left so I can get both feet properly on the mat here. So that feels like it's going to go on the way up. There we go. On the way up and to the right, pardon me, straight over the intermediate point. It feels like it's going to fade a little bit to the left. Here we go. So there's the straight fade. Great launch angle. Terrific carry. I got to stretch that out a little bit. So we're looking at 293. It stayed pretty much straight in the direction that I wanted to, that I started the ball. Launch angle was beautiful, 2,600 RPM. Very, very reasonable. That would have been, you know, center right in the fairway. Let me stretch that out to 300 yards here and put that on driver. Awesome. So I would not be unhappy with that one. That's what you call a really good miss. So I'm going over the intermediate point. I feel like my mass is behind the hit on the way up over the intermediate point, and it's going to fade back to the left. There it is. Ooh, that should be good. That should be good. Nice carry. So a little less roll, so about 290. There you go. There's that beautiful tilt axis to the left. Launch angle a little high because the face was a little bit open compared to the draw. But I will take that, 290 down the middle with a nice little fade. So now if we do the draw, on the way up and to the right of the intermediate point. So now it feels like I'm going to catch it on the way up and a little to the right of the intermediate point. Can't go to the right. Can't go to the right. Excuse me, to the left of the intermediate point. You know, we get our rights and our lefts a little bit mixed up sometimes. So I'm lined up with the intermediate point and I'm releasing to the left side of it. There we go. Stay left, back and through. Left edge, left edge. Ooh, yeah. Left edge, beautifully released. Go hard. Piece of cake. There's 310. Nice little fade. There it is. Beautiful launch angle, 12.5 degrees, 2100 spin. So you notice less spin on that draw. That's why typically you'll get a little more distance out of the draw because you got less spin and a little more projected, a little less launch angle on that. So the key to power for the lead hand guy, and then you'll notice this sometimes when Phil Mickelson gets a little bit ahead of the ball, that's when he tends to block them out to the left. So if you got the lead side behind the hit and you stay with the direction that you want to go on, see how my head stays behind? That's me going to the left of the intermediate point. But if I default to the ball, now I'm way out in front and I got to reach back to square it up. If I do reach back to square it up, it's a snap hook. And if I don't reach back to square it up, then it's a big block left. And there's no catching that one back. There's no recovery from there, okay? So, behind, stay in the direction I want that ball to go, and that'll give me fantastic results. So I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you in the next one.